This podcast is brought to you by Iron Temper Supplies. They're the group behind the Iron Gate International Tattoo Convention going down in Sydney, November 3rd, 4th and 5th at the Hordern Pavilion. And I don't think Australia's seen a convention like this. It's going to be huge. There's more international artists than have previously been at any convention in Australia. It's invite only. They've just really curated the best lineup for a convention that Australia's ever seen. There's so much to do. There's going to be food trucks. There's going to be exhibitions. There's going to be competitions. Come down to the Iron Gate International Tattoo Convention, November 3rd, 4th and 5th at the Hordern Pavilion in Sydney. Let's get into the episode. Welcome back to the True Love Tattoo Podcast. Today, I'm joined by the traveling man himself. It's Ayden Thomas, all the way from WA. Dude, thank you so much for coming over for this.
No problem. Thanks heaps for having me. I'm very excited to be on it.
Oh, rad. So we've been starting every episode, basically doing a deep dive on everyone's sort of career, how you got into tattooing, just sort of, your introduction to tattoos.
Yeah, awesome. Well, when I was in high school, I sort of did art and things like that. But I guess like when you're doing like school sort of art, you kind of got to follow like a kind of path that they sort of do for you. And I just lost interest in it through that. But then when I left school, I actually started dating a tattooist, and as you probably know, like tattooers are always working and like never stopping. So for me to actually like break through and actually like spend time with her, I started drawing myself. And then from that, I sort of found like a love for the art style and things like that. And then years down the track, I look back at it now and I was actually so bad, but she sort of like, I guess, saw something in me and said, do you want a job at this like really kind of, well, she didn't say this, but it was like a bit of a dodgy sort of studio.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, I don't know, because I'm a bit of like a introverted guy and a bit like shy and timid. And the shop that it was at, there was just like one other artist, and he was like a big burly dude. And like I walked in and I was sort of like, I don't know if I would really like fit into tattooing, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was a bit unsure at the start, but I was like, no, I got to go for it. And that's sort of how I started getting into tattooing. I just met someone and then went to this shop and started there.
Were you getting tattoos yourself or?
Yeah, so this was probably like around when I was 19 or something.
Yep.
And like when I like started actually getting into it, and I got my first tattoo when I was 18. So I just started getting tattooed, but I was still so fresh into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I originally got into it. So it was a bit of like a roundabout way. Like I didn't sort of like do the massive grind and like go into shops and like put my resume in and stuff like that, which a lot of tattooers do.
Yeah.
I almost like fell into it kind of. So I was super lucky like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I had sort of almost the same experience, really. Like same age. I was like getting tattooed 18, 19.
Yeah.
Got a job at a shop as well as just like the shop guy. And then it was sort of like by circumstance, it was like, oh, do you want to apprentice? I was like,
yeah.
all right. You know, so yeah.
Yeah. I hear like horror stories of people trying to get into tattooing and just like really putting themselves out there, going into all the shops and giving them their work and stuff. And I can't think of anything more stressful. And I like when people come up to me and talk to me about like, oh, how do you get into tattooing? I don't know what to say, because I would love to say like, you know, you got to work hard and do lots of drawings and go into all the shops and like like put your resume out there and
Yeah.
stuff, but there's no way I could do something like that. I would be terrified.
Yeah,
Like
there's-
tattoo shops are super intimidating, but like not all of them, but like when you're like trying to like work there, I feel like it's like really
Yeah, it's such a
scary.
personal thing to put yourself out there and get feedback. Like anyone that comes into a shop with a portfolio to show, it's like they're really sort of like putting themselves out there and going out on a limb.
And I've seen it before, and I'm scared for them when they come in. I'm like, no, get out while you can. Like, don't go in. But nah, it's actually kind of exciting to like see people's work and like see where they're at. Because I remember when I was like that, like you're super like excited and scared and like yeah, I still really enjoy seeing people's work, but it does like. I'm nervous for them when they come in.
Yeah, yeah, it takes a lot of stones to be able to do that. I feel like the most rewarding thing is like they cut you tell them like, hey man, like it's good, but maybe I'd do this differently or whatever, and they go away and you're like, they're never going to come back. And when they do come back, like a couple months later, and they're like, yeah, I listened to what you said, I've got more stuff, and it's like you might not give them an apprenticeship, but it's so cool to see. Oh, sick! They want this. They went away. They did the work. And they came back. Like, that's someone that really wants it. And those people, I'm like, I reckon whether it's in a year or 2 years, 5 years, they're gonna end up doing it if they keep having that persistence.
Yeah, that's the thing. You just got to keep going. But I actually have a funny story because, like I was saying, that first place that I went into with the big guy and stuff, his name was Steve, and classic like big dude name. And then he was super nice though. Like it wasn't like what I expected.
Yeah.
He was really friendly and stuff, and I didn't last there very long because it was it's a bit of a long story, but my partner actually didn't work at that shop, the one that like got me the job.
Right.
She worked at a different shop, and it was just a bit awkward to go between the two. So I eventually moved to her shop, but that kind of fell through too because there was a big sort of bikey situation going on within the like tattoo shops.
Right.
And we had to leave because it was getting really out of hand. And we actually flew to Canada to like escape it all, I guess.
Oh.
Yeah. So when I moved to Canada, I had that mindset in my head where because I was looking to start again because I was just an apprentice. So I had to like do the whole hand in my stuff again. And like you were saying before, where people keep coming back and they listen to you, that's sort of when I actually started doing that because I walked into shops in Canada and they would pretty much like send me away with like what you said, some like tips and things. And that was like kind of scary, but I tried really hard to sort of do that then. So that's why I was like saying I had like a bit of a weird start to tattooing because I kind of stopped and started.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I actually started again in Canada.
Yeah, okay.
Super strange. But yeah, so that was weird.
Like with the whole bikey thing between shops and like some shops are affiliated with a certain club and then they're beefing whether it's like proximity to each other and they're like, this is our area, you're in our area. Like there's so many horror stories of things going out of hand, like so much violence, or it's like even like this weird possessiveness of people that work in the shop. It's like you don't talk to other tattooers that work in other shops. Like
No.
you don't communicate to any other tattooer, anything like that. So it's like,
yeah, that's what happened. Like, it was in a small, like, not a small town, but in Perth, like most things are small towns.
Yeah.
But like outside of Perth, that's where we were. And the reason why things got kind of hectic when I was starting was another shop opened up close by. And at the time, we were the only shop in this area. And so we wanted to leave because it started getting like kind of bad, but they like back in the day when you worked at a bikie shop, like you said, you couldn't talk to anyone, let alone leaving to go work for like another shop. But being a tattooer, you don't really think about it as like you're working for another bikie gang or anything.
Yeah.
You're just trying to progress your career or something. So one of our friends tried to leave like about a week before we were going to, and we were like, oh yeah, so go do your stuff. And they actually like, so he was mid tat, and the bikie like squad or whatever you want to call them busted in like as he told them, like they were like ready to go, and they came in and like fully like intimidated him into like staying. And like the shop that I worked at back then, the oldest person that worked there was like 20 years old or something. So we were really young, and we were just like, oh my goodness. So then, yeah, after that happened, we were like, yeah, we gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
So we like snuck in at like midnight and like took our stuff and drove away and flew to Canada the next day, and like fully changed our lives because of it. So
That's crazy.
yeah, it was crazy.
Because you would feel like, because a lot of the bikie clubs or whatever, they have chapters all over Australia. So it would feel like, oh man, if I just move cities within Australia, they'll find me.
Yeah. I mean, I was so young at the time, so I didn't really know like what their reach was. But yeah, we thought like, no, we gotta yeet out of here and get and get to another place. And like Canada is like kind of like Australia, like you still can speak English there and get by. So that's where we picked.
Yeah.
But it was like a quick kind of switch up. Like, yeah. So my starting of tattooing was super all over the place.
Yeah, super turbulent.
Yes. So within that, like, and that span of time of me working with Steve, the first guy, and then like going to the second shop where my partner at the time worked at, was all in the span of a year.
Right.
So like I got into tattooing, and then all that happened, and then I had to move country after that. Just within that. So yeah, 2 shops, and then moving country, and then having to like start again. So yeah, it was a really like turbulent beginning to my tattooing, but yeah, got there in the end.
Wow. So you moved to Canada. Where do you end up working when you get to Canada?
So that was the thing. When I moved to Canada, I actually couldn't get a job, like, because like I was saying before, my partner got me the job at these first 2 places, and then when we moved to Canada, I sort of had to be out in the wilderness by myself, handing in my portfolio and stuff. And I didn't get a job. Like, no one hired me. So I sort of just worked at a cafe for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then we were like, I think it's been enough time. We can come back now. So we came back, and then that's when I like really started tattooing, I think.
Right.
So yeah, I guess it was like 2 years of like trying to get amongst tattooing. And then when I finally moved back to Perth, and it seemed like everything was chill, nothing happened.
Yeah.
And then, I got into it through that at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you come back to Perth to like start it up again, restart your career.
Yeah.
Where did you go in Perth? Like,
So I started working at a shop called Bloodlines, which is where I still work to this day, and it's an amazing shop. But more turbulent stuff happened when I moved back, which is pretty funny. Less hectic, less bikey situation, kind of bikey situation, but not really. I don't know. It's super
bikey light.
Yeah, it's super strange. Like me, like dealing with that stuff is super random, because I'm like, just a very like, I don't know, gentle, like timid guy. And then because I like tattooing, I'm having to like get amongst like bikie gangs. And it's so strange to think that like that's what I had to go through back then to get into tattooing.
Yeah.
But so when I moved back, so I got hired at Bloodlines because the shop had changed owners. And like when that happens, it's like the time when people leave, because like I was saying, you can't just leave a shop back then, because the bikie gang would think that you're like betraying them or something. So if the shop owners switch over, everyone spans out, they run, they're like, okay, I can finally go. So I got hired to to this shop. So they thought that there was tattooers there because everyone had quit. And I didn't know that yet. So I came back to I got hired to the shop, and then there was like no artist there.
It was just you?
Yeah, and there was a receptionist.
Yeah.
It wasn't just me. There was 2 other guys, and they were sort of quitting at the time, but they were there when I started.
Yeah.
And then there was a receptionist, and she thought I was like a full-blown artist as well, because that's what they told her.
Right.
Because they needed numbers to sell the shop, so it looked like there was people like working there. So I was like, I don't actually I don't know what I'm doing. And they just assumed that they would start giving me jobs and like get into it. So yeah, I don't know. Like, me getting into tattooing was such a strange experience, but yeah.
Totally.
From that, then I actually like was like, no, please help me, like teach me. Don't just throw me out into the deep end and like do walk-ins. And then the shop started like picking up steam again when the owners changed. So it kind of ended up good in the end.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a very, very turbulent start to tattooing.
So what year was that where you moved to Bloodlines?
That was in 2015. That was because I still in my Instagram, my first post is my first day at Bloodlines, and I keep it there because I think it's like my proper first day at tattooing. Even though I had been doing it for like a couple of years beforehand, I feel like that is like the beginning of like when I actually became a tattooist, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So from there, I feel like a huge part of your reputation is the fact that you're constantly traveling.
Yeah.
It's like you're in every city all at once all the time.
Yeah.
Like, explain to me sort of like the process into going and traveling for the first time to tattoo.
So I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like I never do anything the normal way in life. I actually did my first ever convention within 6 months of me starting that job at Bloodlines in 2015, and it was at a Melbourne convention. I think it was Rites of Passage. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, it was a long time ago. But yeah, so that first trip, I just like really wanted to get into like the thick of it with tattooing. And everyone back then would do conventions because it was sort of like a good way to get your name out there. Like Instagram was around, but it wasn't as big in 2015 as it is now. So yeah, the first time traveling was a bit scary. I got like staunched a little bit at my booth, like not like aggressively, but just like you can tell like tattooists were like, who's this guy, and would like come up and like chat to me, and I was freaking out like tattooing behind the booth, and I was still an apprentice, so I was just like, I was like trying to look the part, I guess. But yeah, that was like the first time traveling, and I kind of fell in love with it through that, and I just kept going, like. And that's sort of like, it's weird, like I set myself up in all these cities, and then it sort of felt normal to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Because I like got all these customers.
Yeah.
So it was weird to stay put for me, and then and people would message me like, when are you going to come back? When are you going to come back? So I just started just traveling full time almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just sort of started doing it. But that first initial time was, it was really fun. I think I got like like kind of addicted to it almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I guess like, especially being so new to tattooing as well as being so introverted and shy, going to a convention where people are constantly coming up to you, it's sort of like pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, it was scary.
And so you said like everyone was like a bit staunch or whatever. Was it that they connected you with the shop that you were working at or something like that, and then we're kind of like, what's this about? Or was it just like, did your banner just say Ayden Thomas, and then they're like, haven't heard of this guy, fucking who's this guy think he is?
I think so, almost, because like I've always done like a traditional style, like American traditional style of tattooing, and I think like it's a very like tight community within Australia doing that sort of thing. I think just the fact that I was like brand new at a convention amongst all these like amazing tattooers, I think it was just like kind of odd. Like people were like intrigued or something. So, like a lot of like big tattooers came up to the booth, and they probably weren't staunch at all. It's probably just me thinking they were, and just being like scared little me there, like tattooing.
Yeah, you're sitting down, they're standing up. It's
Exactly.
looking down on you.
And I like hand drew my banner with like a Sharpie, so it was kind of budget. But yeah. So yeah, they probably weren't even staunching me. I was just freaking out the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was like your first sort of trip out of Perth.
That was my first time.
How long did it take for you to be like, I'm going to go do another trip and another one, another one?
I think it was like pretty quick. Hey,
Quick?
I think I ended up doing the Sydney convention after that, like not long after, and then sort of just kept going.
It was sort of one of those things where it's like you go into a convention and sort of people just come across you for the first time while you're at the convention and building a client base that way. So then you're coming back to do guest spots, and then those people are coming to get tattooed by you at guest spots.
Yep. Yeah. So, and like when I first when I first traveled to Melbourne, I met the guys at Grand Illusion Tattoo, and I started working with them, and they were like, I think like when you travel, like you get a very different like kind of outlook on tattooing depending on who you're working with. Like tattooing is so different all over the world, and even just like different studios do it so differently. So I kind of fell in love with the way that the Grand Illusion did tattooing, if that makes sense. Like very like old school, very like they loved it. They like painted flash all the time and just enjoyed each other's company and the music, and it was just like such a breath of fresh air going there, because I was so used to bikey and angry and scary, and when I went to the Grand Illusion, I was like, wow, it's like
Wholesome.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe that was like what made me actually like fall in love with traveling, is like realizing there's more things to experience out there and see, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
And so when you're doing it, is it kind of like you fly to say Brisbane and then Brisbane to Sydney, Sydney to Melbourne, and sort of do like a little bit of a tour as opposed to like?
Yeah, that would be the smart way to do it.
Oh, you're just going back and forth.
I
each
go
time?
back and forth, which is so silly. But I've never been one to like operate like my situation in the most financially proper way. I don't know how to say it, but I'm just a bit loosey-goosey with it all. So I go. So back when I started traveling, I lived in Perth, obviously, and then it was so expensive. But I actually moved to Brisbane, and it was a lot cheaper to fly. So that's like, that's what I did. So I've done a tour like once or twice, but yeah, it's very rare. I usually just go back and forth.
Yeah. Is it sort of like, man, I just want to be home for a bit?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I'm a big gamer, and I love just being at home, being like in my room and playing games and painting, and being on the road for so long. You just miss home so much. So yeah,
just all those creature comforts. It's like you're so uncomfortable the whole time, and even like when you're jumping from shop to shop, even if it's a shop that you've been to a million times to guest, you're still working out of a suitcase, setting it up, and you might be in a different corner of the shop to where you were last time.
Exactly.
And it's so disorienting. I feel like it takes a couple of days to get used to, and then by the time you're used to it, you leave, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's sort of like where you reach for something, it's like, oh, my paper towel's normally here. Oh, it's not here. Where the fuck is it? Like it's always different every sort of time. So I guess you would have become comfortable, a little bit comfortable with the discomfort.
Absolutely. Yeah. I kind of I was talking about this before. Like I don't know what it is about me, but I being comfortable is not necessarily something I enjoy.
Right.
If that makes sense. I don't know. I kind of like being like thrown into the deep end a bit and like being a bit in like a struggle. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, it's strange, but I was just saying before we got in here that like I can sleep on the floor like perfectly fine and like people think that's super weird, but I don't know. I think just in my life, like being a bit chaotic is kind of enjoyable to me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's another reason why I like traveling so much.
Yeah.
But yeah. Do you travel much?
Pre-pandemic, I did.
Yeah.
And then sort of the whole time during the pandemic, I thought, man, I can't wait. As soon as this is over, as soon as we're out, I'm gonna go do all this shit. And then I sort of went the other way. It like the pandemic finished, got back to work, and I had a whole bunch of anxiety about going and traveling. And then it was ages before I did. I think I did a trip to Sydney, and even just packing. And the whole time I was like, I know I've packed everything.
Yeah.
I feel like I've fucked something up, and I'm gonna get there.
Trust me, you always fuck something up.
I've got a pretty sweet habit of forgetting my power supply nearly every single time and getting to the shop, getting ready for my first tattoo and realizing I don't have power to run a machine.
Yeah.
And I've done it so many times.
Yep. I honestly, like you're saying, I travel all the time and I do it as well. Like every trip, there's always something I miss, but that's another thing. You just got to go with it. You just got to make it work, I guess.
How many times have you traveled and had a bottle of ink or something explode on the plane?
Yeah, I have my suitcases here. I'll show you afterwards. It's just like black and purple and green and all these magical colors. Like my whole suitcase is just full of it. And I've always thought about getting a new suitcase, but there's nothing actually wrong with it, so there's no point. But yeah, it's really bad. And every time I fly, I'll do a different technique of how I'm gonna wrap my ink bottles, and there's no saving it.
No.
You're doomed every time.
You're at the airport and you're looking out the window and you're just watching them like throw the suitcases onto the plane. And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. No, it's every time. It never goes away. And like this trip now, because I tattooed on this trip as well, and I forgot like tubes, like my lining tubes, and I was like, yeah, like half the tattoo is lining, half the tattoo is shading. Yeah, I forget a whole like section. I forget all my liners. Like it's like, okay, cool.
That makes me feel better. It makes me feel like I'm not alone.
Yeah, I'm hopeless. I never get better, even though I do it all the time. But yeah.
Do you like? It's a massive task, and obviously there's a great expense to traveling, especially from Western Australia.
So expensive now. Yeah.
So to be able to do that and like frequently do that, it must be something that you're just extremely passionate about. Like the traveling itself, you must enjoy.
Yeah, I really do. Like, when I was younger, I traveled a lot as well. Like, because I used to play ice hockey very competitively, and being in Australia, it's a very like niche sport.
Yeah.
So I would have to travel to Europe all the time, and seeing Europe like and traveling at such a young age, I think like kind of sparked it. So yeah, I think I do just really love it. And I like we were saying, like you forget things, like you're never like fully prepared, and I love chaos. So maybe that's why as well. It's just like just chaotic the whole time. So
Yeah.
enjoyable for me.
There's this quote from probably wrong. Charles Bukowski, and it's like, find something you love and let it kill you. Mm-hmm. And do you think that like being so all in and constantly traveling and all the chaos and all that sort of stuff, as much as you love it, do you feel like it comes at a personal cost?
Yes. It definitely has costed a lot of things, like friendships and stuff, because never being in one place at a time, you kind of slowly lose like connections and stuff. And yeah, like with the quote being like, sorry, what was the quote again? Let it
Find something you love and let it kill you.
Yeah, let it kill you.
Dramatic, but
Yeah. I think it's a pretty hectic quote, but it also is sort of like what people strive for, like in like the media and like just what people tell you, like to get somewhere in life you have to work super hard, and if you stop working you're almost like being lazy or something, or someone else is going to work harder than you, so you're going to fall behind, which is true and not true at the same time, I guess. Like in my life, I find that I can juggle three things, and whether it be a relationship, family, work, fitness, hobbies, things like that. Usually I can do three things, and I find that like if you focus, I guess, like most of your time on one thing, you're gonna like definitely like miss out on a lot of life.
Yeah.
So as much as it is good to like do something you love until it kills you, I guess, you also tend to forget like what is important in the time, if that makes sense.
Totally. It's sort of like you're focusing so heavily on one of like those three aspects that other things can get neglected.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I don't feel like I can focus on four things or five things because then I'm spreading myself too thin.
So my three things I feel like I focus on at the moment is work, family, and I'm trying to go to the gym more. Mm-hmm. And like in doing that, I'm like struggling with friendships and stuff. So yeah, I feel like you really got to pick like be strategic, but also know that like it's not the I don't know how to say. I guess it's not like the be all and end all, that one thing that you thought was everything, because you change as you grow up, and like you just got to adapt to that. Because and I would guess that some people would spend majority of their time like doing one thing and then it doesn't work out, and then they're like kind of stuck. Like that's all they know. So as much as it is great to focus on one thing, it can kind of kick you in the butt later on. Yeah.
I feel like I've always tended to be like a bit of a workaholic.
Same.
In general. And then, man, the day I discovered Gary V. And he was just like, man, he was just revving me up. He's like, I don't know if do you know Gary V? He's like this American entrepreneur dude who's just all about that hustle. Or like, man, go to garage sales and flip stuff. And like, I kind of just like bought into it too much, and then like, man, I was just quoting it all the time to people, and they're like, man, like that sort of like hustle culture is pretty toxic, you know. And then I was just like, what do you mean? It's just like you just don't fucking work hard enough. And then I was just sort of thinking about that and just always biting off more than I could chew, and I'm like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna work this many days a week, but I'm going to do this instead. And I still do it. But now I think I'm more aware of it. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it for a bit, get to a point, and then I'll ease up on it. But I'll get these things out of the way.
Yeah.
At the moment, like I tattooed 6 days. I've got this podcast.
Yeah.
Got like 2-3 other things as well.
Absolutely.
And they all have a finish date. And I'm just kind of like, cool. Once they're done, I'm just going to chill out for the rest of the fucking year and just tattoo and not like doing stuff. But it comes at a cost. And I feel like personally, I've just like neglected my health for years.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just like won't eat all day, like no breakfast, no lunch, tattoo all day. and then I'll just have a fucked dinner or something like that. And
Yeah.
it's just like such a bad habit to get into, not exercising, all that sort of stuff, like bad back, my knees are wrecked, like all sorts of stuff, and just like neglecting it because I'm like, no, like I need to work as much as I can while I can.
Yeah, and we're still so young and we're having all these issues.
Yeah.
It feels so bad.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, and people tell you, you know, you need to look after yourself and you need to do this better and stuff. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, but like I prioritize everything else except myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just comes at such a cost.
Yeah, well, for me, like my personal experience with doing that, because when I was younger, I was all into tattooing, like nothing else mattered.
Yeah.
So like I was definitely living that do what you love until it kills you kind of thing. And when you get older, yeah, it was like great at the time, but now I look back and I think, oh God, like have I screwed up like some relationships, or have I neglected my family or things like that, which is like, yeah, it's kind of upsetting, but that's what they tell you to do, or like people tell you to do, I guess. Like you got to work, and go. And when you're younger, you really soak that in and you're like, yeah, I'm just tattooing and that's all I'm doing. So yeah, it is very, very hectic, but it's kind of very true. If you do find something you love, you tend to let it like take control and I guess kill you, because you're not thinking of anything else in life. And that's I don't know if that's good or bad, but like who knows? Like I always say, like, because I love tattoos and I love getting tattoos and I love doing tattoos, and I always say, God, I wish I loved going to the gym. And I wish I loved just being like a buff stock trading giga chad of a human, but I'm just not. But I'm into like getting tattooed and being in pain, and like it's like, why did I pick that? I still love it, but why couldn't I have been the giga chad stock trading gym junkie and just be like fully into that?
Yeah, I think like a huge part of it as well, like that, you know, just grinding yourself into the ground and trying to do more and more and more. Like social media would be a huge factor in that, where it's like you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, and you're seeing like people that may have been tattooing the same amount of time as you, but their career is so more advanced than yours. Like where they're at in their career in the same amount of time, and then you're comparing. It's like, fuck, like we've been doing this for the same amount of time. They're so further ahead of me. I need to do more. It's like and you just constantly compare.
Always think that. And it's always a skew view of what it actually is.
Yeah.
Because people even talk to me as if like I have it all together, or like I am something that they like look up to, like younger tattooers and stuff. And I'm like, oh God, don't do that. Like I don't have it together. I don't know what I'm doing still. But yeah, you always compare yourself to someone else, or you always think, oh, what I could have done better. And yeah, it's such a toxic thing that us humans do.
Yeah.
Is we always want more. And that's why like letting something kill you that you love, it's like a never-ending battle, because you're never going to be satisfied.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's kind of sad like that.
And it affects more than just ourselves as well. You know? Like
everything.
Like relationships, friendships, like so many things can almost feel like they're a lower priority. Yeah, because it's like, no, I want to achieve this and I want to do this, which I think a lot of people in other careers or whatever, like if people have office jobs or hospitality or whatever, it's sort of like they might still have goals in terms of like wanting to climb the ladder or whatever it is, but it's sort of, I feel like the mindset's slightly different.
Yeah, I think so too. And I sometimes wish for an office job. Like I could go get coffee in the morning, go sit at the computer, do some things. I don't know what office jobs Spreadsheets, yeah. And you do that all day, then you go home and you just play video games and you don't think about nothing, and then you just do it again next day, and that's that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, just having like a real separation between work and home.
Yeah, because as a tattooist, you can't really do that. You go to work, you do your work, you come home, you do your work again. You love it though, so like I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're like, "Ooh, what if the spreadsheets like that's kind of cool?"
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's hard because it's like you finish work, you're at home, and for some tattooists, they're drawing for the next day, or they're replying to emails, or
Yeah.
like whatever, like just their personal like business type of thing. And you don't really switch off.
Yeah, it goes back to like that hustle culture type thing. If you're tattooing during the day and then you go home and you don't have a job tomorrow to draw for, you think, oh God, I don't have a job. So I'm going to work extra hard tonight because I'm not doing the right thing by having super busy schedules and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So even if you're not busy, you tend to make yourself more busy because you think you should be busy.
Definitely.
Yeah, so it's like I said, it's like a never-ending like race or battle to just I don't know the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just keep progressing and
Yeah, that like nothing freaks me out more than not having a tattoo booked in.
I know it scares me so much.
And then I'm like terrible at saving money and just anything like business wise like that just is irresponsible,
Yeah,
basically. So it's sort of like, oh no, like there's that, I don't know, scarcity where it's like, I have nothing in tomorrow. I need something in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Doing everything in my power to secure a booking for the next day, as opposed to a regular sort of office job or whatever, where it's like you can rock up and get paid, or it's like, oh, I've got sick days, I've got like sick leave, I won't go in tomorrow and I still get paid for it. You know, like there's those kinds of that security that people have, and I think like
that's pretty cool.
yeah, security would be cool, but I feel like with tattooing, you're relying entirely on yourself. You can't necessarily rely on the shop to give you work. The only person that can get work for yourself is you. And it's that pressure that you're putting on yourself constantly. And I think most tattooers put that pressure on themselves too.
Yeah, I think we all go through the same thing. And like what you're saying about like relying on the shop to get you work, I guess there's like other like because tattooing is so broad. There's so many different ways of tattooing. But like if you do rely on the shop to get you work, you are kind of almost doing a regular job. Like 'cause you're not like, and that's fine.
Yeah,
it's actually good. And as a tattoo culture or whatever, you do need those tattooers that are happy and really want to do the walk-ins and things like that.
Walk-ins are such a huge part of tattooing, where it's, you know, people want a spontaneous thing or whatever. And it's like to be able to walk into a shop and get a tattoo the day that you decide you want to get it. That's huge. That's tattooing, you know,
and that is like a cool sub-genre of tattooing, is being like the walk-in tattooist. But for me, the way I want to be, that would be me failing almost if I was to rely on the shop to get me work. So I think that's like if you did rely on the shop to get you work, you could go home and play video games. But I don't want to do that. So it's like a double-edged sword. It's like, I could be the tattooer that is happy to do the walk-ins, but I just don't want to.
Some people live for it. I've like the first shop you worked in Perth, Steve, was that a street shop?
That was a street shop, and poor Steve was hustling. He like he only relied on walk-ins, and it was kind of rough, like because he didn't do tattooing for like art, I guess, or like. He just did it. He must have like fell into it somehow.
It's like a trade. Sort of
it was sort of like a trade to him. So yeah, he would just do walk-ins, and that's another reason why I'm glad I sort of got out of that, because I didn't want to end up being in that situation.
Was it because some tattooers love it and some tattooers hate it, that feeling of put on the spot, oh shit, they're sitting right there. I need to draw it right now,
Yeah.
make it happen. Like some people, it's like they're all about it,
Yeah.
which is sick.
Yeah,
And
it's
I feel like I used to be like that. I like apprenticed at a street shop, moved to Melbourne, worked in a busy street shop.
Yeah.
Kind of really enjoyed it. And then it just sort of, I don't know, I think once I started working in a private studio, I
Yeah.
was like, oh, this is relaxing and I'm enjoying spending more time on the drawing and stuff like that. And I felt progression for me personally. And then there was one point where I'm like, I don't want to lose the skill of being able to do a walk-in. So I like went back to the shop I apprenticed at for a guest spot. And I'm like, I'm not taking bookings. I'm just going to, because that shop was like mental for walk-ins.
Right.
So I was like, I'm just going to go back and do that. And then I went back and then I was hoping to do the infinity symbols and the Roman numerals the zodiac symbols and stuff like that. It's like, I want to do that because I don't, it's like a muscle. You don't want to like lose the ability to do it.
Sure.
And I went back and then I think I did maybe like one zodiac symbol and then the rest was just people coming in to get the traditional stuff and flash anyway. And I was like, oh.
You went around in a circle. You're like, oh crap.
Yeah.
I don't want to do them anymore.
So yeah, it just turned into doing the stuff I really enjoy doing anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that sort of that pressure, I enjoy working under pressure. And I think you do too in a way.
Yeah, like I was saying before, I do like to be a bit uncomfortable. But going back to my apprenticeship, how it was so turbulent, right? Usually when you do an apprenticeship, you do the walk-ins first. But because I had that really strange apprenticeship, I don't really know how to do walk-in stuff that well, which is something I regret.
Yeah.
Because I never like really learnt it.
Right.
Because it was such a weird beginning to tattooing that I just got straight into doing my work.
Yeah, okay.
So I hate
like
to
that's
put it
pretty
out there,
rare.
but I'm not very good at walk-in stuff. Like, yeah, it scares me. And then I see our apprentices at Bloodlines, the shop that I work at in Perth, amazing, and they're busting out walk-ins and the infinity is like perfectly infinity.
Yeah.
And like I'm sitting there like, oh yep, good job. Yep. And I couldn't do that. Like I'm trying to keep it cool, but like I'm like, ooh, these guys are getting really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm it's something that like I never got taught how to do, and I wish I did, but because I've been tattooing for, like, if you include those couple of years beforehand, 10 years now, like beforehand as I mean like those first couple of rough years.
Yeah.
It's almost like an old dog new tricks kind of thing. I wouldn't mind like going back and trying to learn how to do like the small walk-in stuff and the script and things like that, but yeah, I do have so much respect for people that can just, a customer will walk in, they'll bust it out and they'll get it done, and you know, they don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Walk-in comes in for me and I'm the only one there and like everyone else is busy, I'm shitting myself. I'm like, please don't ask for a love across your neck or something because I'm gonna fuck that up.
Man, I feel like necks are like, I've tattooed a few, and every time it's a nightmare.
Oh,
and it's at the point now, I think it's probably, I'll tattoo a dick before I tattoo another neck.
Oh yeah, honestly, give me a dick to tattoo. I'm all for it. I can do a trad rose on your dick if you want, but don't let me do love on your finger.
Yeah.
Like across here or something. I'll be sweating bullets. Yeah, give me the dick, I'll do that. Or the bum or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I've done plenty of bum tattoos. I've never done a dick tattoo, but I've also I have done a finger tattoo before, but yeah. They walk-ins scare me pretty much.
Yeah. I got told by a guy who did a couple of dick tattoos how he did it.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh. Yeah, that sounds That sounds achievable.
Can I guess how?
Yeah, go for it.
Because I actually don't know. And if it came up to me to do it,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'd do. So,
You don't want to wrestle with it trying to figure it out.
no. So, but if I was to, I'm in the spot, I'm doing it, I would, because would you want it to be hard? That's the thing I would be scared about. But if not, if like that's not an option, because I don't know how you would do that, you would have to like somehow pull the skin, right? And then that could, yeah, I don't know.
I think if it was hard, it wouldn't be for very long.
Yeah.
I think it would go down pretty quick.
Yeah, that's the problem. I don't know.
I heard is you get a can of Coke
Oh no.
and you basically stretch
Stretch
it
it
over the can
around
of
it.
Coke and it's like a mini armrest under it.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah,
You wrap the Coke bottle like in like an armrest.
I probably would.
Yeah, I
Probably
probably
would.
too.
You don't know who's touched it at the servo beforehand.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I heard that. And I'm like, interesting.
Okay, that kind of makes sense actually. But yeah, I was trying to think of how you would stretch it, but yeah, you'd need help. Coke can would definitely.
Yeah, a fluffer. You have a fluffer on hand.
No.
Rough day for the apprentice.
Yeah, poor apprentices.
It's tattooing necks was always so stressful for me, and I feel like every time something would happen, it's like I think the last one I did, I was trying to do it, and then the dude would keep turning his head to talk to me.
Oh, yeah.
While I'm doing it, I'm like, "Are you right? Please,
Yeah.
like, I just need you to stay still." And it's like constantly moving. And then
Yep.
I asked Ben Kendall, who I work with, to tattoo my neck. And he's like, "Yeah, man, I'll do it." I'm like, You don't have to if you don't want to. I totally understand. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I'm also saying now, this isn't a trade situation. Like,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you ask me to do yours in return, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Yeah, no, I don't give a fuck."
Okay.
And he was just so like,
How good are tattooers like that? You're like,
dude, it was, for him, it was almost like tattooing an arm, you know?
Yeah.
It was just chill.
just don't care.
Nah.
Yeah, there's some very special tattooers out there. I'm definitely not one of those. I would be stressing so hard.
Some people just seem unflappable,
Yeah.
where it's like nothing phases them. And then afterwards, they're like, "Man, I think I almost shit myself during that."
Going back to like what you were saying about like customers like talking to you and stuff, that is like super stressful. I think like you know how when like you're tattooing an arm or something and they will like constantly like move and like moves the whole arm. That is like so triggering.
Or they're just really animated and talk with their hands.
Yes, that too. And you're like, you're an awesome person, but stop doing that, please.
Just tie their arm down.
Yeah. And we were saying before, like the meme of like customers getting on beds and stuff. It's like such a different, like they just don't know how to act or they don't know what to do, but it's not their fault. But it's just tattooing is just such an interesting process that, yeah.
So it's so weird. I think you definitely overthink it. Like I'll get tattooed and they'll be like, "Cool, just stand still," or like while they put the stencil on, and then I'm
Yeah.
standing there and I'm like, "Am I standing still?
Am I
don't know."
vibrating right now?
Just like hyper fixate on like, "Oh no, I think I'm moving my finger," like all that sort of stuff, and you just
Like
get
stenciling
in your
is
own
fun.
yeah, you get in your own head about it, and then I think it's probably the same thing with like, "All right, cool, just hop up on the bed," and then they're like, How do I do this normally? I don't normally get onto a table this high.
Yeah.
And just not so graceful.
Just like do a run up before they get on. They're like, yeah, held it.
It's the worst. I've had like beds break on people, and not even that they're like massive or anything. It's
Yeah.
just that, maybe someone before them got on and they just put their knee into like a weak spot of it and sort of like partially broke it without us realizing. And then the next person goes on, and I was working, and one of the other guys working, his customer went through the fucking bed.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I've never had that happen before. It's always so scary though. Like, I don't know, like if you hear a creak or something when they're about to get on it, you're like, oh God, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Have you, this is a bit of a offshoot of this.
Yeah.
Have you ever had someone pass out on you?
Yeah.
That is the scariest thing. One time, a lady was sitting on the side of a bed, and I thought that when you were sitting or laying, you wouldn't pass out. Like, it was only if you were standing. Turns out, no, you can definitely pass out sitting down. So, but she went like, she was sitting on the side and she went backwards and flipped back over the bed. And that was the most traumatic thing I've ever witnessed with like a bed situation.
Do you want to know something?
Yeah.
On a previous episode,
Yeah.
talking about exactly that.
What?
Yeah, I was sorry to everyone listening, but it was Louis, who I was working with at Man's Ruin, did a little thing. Girl was sitting on the bed. He turned around to get the Glad wrap, and she went backwards like a fucking scuba diver.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw it. I was like, holy shit, because I didn't know she was going to pass out. And then it happened, and Louis just turned around and she was gone. She's just on the floor. He's like, where'd she go?
She went into a parallel universe.
Yeah, it's scary as fuck.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's like you ask people, you like, they're getting real clammy and stuff.
Yeah,
and you're like,
yeah.
are you feeling okay? And I think most people are embarrassed or whatever, and they're like, no, I'm fine. And then they get up to go get a drink of water, and on their way to get the water, they just straight down.
Yeah, it's scary stuff. And it always happens before the tattoo for me.
Oh, like in the stenciling sort of process.
Yeah, or just like it's the nerves that get to them. So I'm always like hyper focused on the customer. Like when I'm stenciling, like if I'm doing like a leg or something, I'm like, are you okay? You okay? Like I don't want them to like topple over.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a scary thing. Like I've had it happen once the tattoo's been finished before.
Yeah.
But like it tends to catch me off guard. So now I like tend to like,
Has
kind of
it ever happened to you?
like me passing out.
Yeah.
Well, funny enough, I've actually been a bit sick over the past couple of days, and I was at the shop, and I just finished up a tattoo, and I was sitting there looking at it, and I started like swaying backwards, like, oh God. But no, I've never passed out before, thankfully. But I've come close a few times. The closest I've ever gotten was I broke my arm, and then when they took the cast off my arm, I don't know what happened, but my arm felt all floppy, and that kind of made me feel weird. And I was like, oh
no.
That's the closest I've ever been to passing out.
Yeah.
You?
Yeah, I think I've passed out, but not in like a tattoo context.
Okay.
It's from like being sick and trying to walk upstairs or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sucks. I like I say, I haven't passed out before, but it doesn't seem nice.
Everyone that does, when they come to, they feel really refreshed.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen that, and you're like, okay, you were just on your deathbed like a minute ago. But yeah.
Yeah. One of the craziest ones I've had was I was tattooing a French girl. I can't remember if I've told this story on the podcast in season 1, maybe not. But on the waiver, she said that she's not prone to fainting. It was 5 o'clock, and the guys had just cracked a beer, and I'm like, oh, I'm so keen. That looks so good. And then had one line left to go on this tiny tattoo, and she was just sitting on a stool with her arm on her armrest.
Yeah.
And she said something, and I look up and she's gone white and her eyes started rolling back. And I'm like, oh shit. And she started to go, and I like put my machine down and I like caught her before she fell, but there was an armrest between us. So I was like, oh shit. And then Kyle, who I worked with, came over to help me and sort of like, so we can lay her down and do all the things you do when someone faints. And her friend's just laughing. It's not funny. Like she can't help it. And then her friend goes, normally when this happens, she has a fit. And I was like, what do you mean? And then like right on cue, she starts having a fit, which has never happened to me before. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Kyle claims that she farted on him, but I don't know if that's true. And once she came good, she was totally fine. And she goes, yeah, I've just got this weird thing where it's like if my body experiences pain, it just shuts off. And she said it's happened when her mum has brushed her hair too hard.
Oh my goodness.
Just randomly. So her friend was aware of this and didn't say anything. She didn't put it on the consent form. And then I'm like, how come you tick like that you're not prone to fainting? She goes, oh, I just didn't think it would happen.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is so scary. I had once the customer's friend who was standing there pass out. Yeah, you got to be ready for anything in tattooing. Like, it's rough out there. But yeah. like not even like I think it was the mother was getting tattooed, and it was the daughter actually. Now that I remember correctly, and she's just out of the corner of my eye, and just boom. And I'm like, what the
Oh my God, yeah, you're keeping an eye on the customer and then someone else.
Yeah, you can never win.
So the way we wrap these episodes up, Ayden, is there anyone you want to plug, shout out, and yeah?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this. I would definitely like to shout out the shops that I work at because, like you're saying, I'm a traveling tattooist. I'm all over the place. So the shops that I get to work at are like super lovely and like just the best to work at. So in Perth, I work at Bloodlines. That's like my main shop, and everyone there is amazing. I'm actually traveling with Aaron Murphy, who works there, and so shout out to him specifically and all my buddies there. So thanks, Aaron, for coming along the trip with me for this time. And when I come to Melbourne, I work at Good Luck Tattoo, so shout out to them. They've always been amazing. I started working with them just after I worked at the Grand Illusion, so shout out Grand Illusion as well. And the shops that I work at in Sydney, I started working at the Darling Parlour, and then now I work at Tattoo Rosie's. So shout out to all those guys. Oh, and Alfred Street in the Gold Coast. I work there as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, shout out to those guys.
Rad.
Awesome.
Ayden, thank you so much for
No problem. Thank you for having me. I was like a bit nervous to come on, but yeah, it's super easy to talk to, and yeah, thanks heaps for having me.
Appreciate it, man. Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you.
This podcast is recorded with the team at Superdog Studios here in Melbourne. For all your video and audio podcast needs and much, much more, visit superdogstudios.com.